8 spine-chilling road trip horrors. We took a forbidden shortcut and uncovered terrifying secrets. The Miller family's last hurrah was supposed to be a carefree road trip, a chance to bond before Jenna flew off to college. They packed snacks, a playlist of their favorites, and a longing for adventure, but they did not anticipate the twisting road ahead. "Look, a shortcut," Sarah exclaimed, her eyes bright with excitement. As they turned off the main highway onto an unpaved back road, the suburban chaos faded behind them, replaced by creeping trees that stood like silent sentinels. Sunlight slowly disappeared, and the world outside darkened as ominous shadows crept along the pavement. Suddenly, the engine sputtered a guttural cough before silence took hold. The car ground to a halt under a flickering streetlight, illuminating their horrified expressions. "Not now," Mike muttered, fumbling with the ignition as panic tightened around their throats. No lights, no service, just the heavy blanket of night. The stillness became deafening. Jenna's heart raced, each beat a reminder that this simplicity was slowly unraveling into something sinister. Just then, headlights cut through the darkness, revealing an old pickup bouncing along the dirt road. It stopped a few feet away, and the driver, a man named Hank, climbed down with a disconcerting grin that felt like ice crawling across Jenna's skin. "Need some help?" His voice dripped with an unsettling cheer as they hesitated. Hank continued, "I know these roads like the back of my hand." Every friendly word wrapped them in unease, his eyes glinting with the secrets they weren't meant to uncover. But desperation overruled their instincts. "Okay," Mike said, glancing at Sarah, who nodded though unease flickered in her eyes. While they awaited a tow, a derelict school appeared from the tree line, its presence oppressive. The windows, cracked and empty, seemed to watch them. "Let us check it out," Jenna suggested, despite the knot tightening in her stomach. The family stepped beyond the threshold, and a musty odor filled the air, the herald of neglect and horror. Dust danced in their flashlight beams as they unraveled hallways lined with faded photographs, frozen images of haunted faces, smiles suspended in time. Then, Jenna discovered a hidden compartment in a teacher's desk. She pulled out crumpled papers, an uneasy feeling knotting in her stomach. The notes detailed rituals tied to American folklore, dark symbols swirling like murky clouds. The secrets of this town seeped into them, the weight pulling them beneath a chilling wave of dread. Outside, hushed voices floated on the night air. Groups of locals gathered with shadows flickering around a fire, whispering tales of those who never left. "Did you hear that?" Tyler gasped, the color draining from his face. They realized Hank wasn't just a helpful mechanic. He and his friends were threads in a tapestry of terror sewn tightly by ancient wrongs. Tension escalated like a breaking dam when Hank reappeared, his grin replaced by menace as more townsfolk joined him, lurking like phantoms. "Time to leave," Mike said through clenched teeth. But they were trapped in a web of horror with no clear way out. Jenna gripped Tyler's arm, a lifeline in a sea of panic. Breathless moments stretched as Hank moved closer, shadows deepening around them. An invisible dread hovered in the air, whispering words, "They'll be just like the others if they don't learn to obey." Clenching her eyes shut, Jenna understood the sinister implications. They were engulfed in a darkness thicker than the night itself. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the tension tightened around the Millers, hope flickered for a brief moment, only to dissolve in the chilling realization that not everyone around them was friendly. They had entered a living nightmare where they faced an impossible choice: to confront the malevolent beings surrounding them or submit to a darkness that threatened to pull them in forever. Silence engulfed them, the air thick with terror as the first glimmers of dawn threatened to hide the shadows still lurking. Would they ever escape this town alive? The air crackled with tension as Hank's shadow loomed closer, the light flickering across his face, twisting the curve of his smile into something monstrous. "Why are you so scared?" he taunted, his voice dripping with mockery. The Miller family remained frozen, like deer caught in headlights, uncertainty clawing at their throats. "Just get away from us," Mike blurted, eyes darting for an escape. But the crowd pressed in, their faces twisted with a blend of curiosity and malice that sent a chill down Jenna's spine. This was no ordinary town. They were surrounded by people who thrived on their fear. Jenna felt the oppressive weight of the letters she read earlier, echoing in her mind like a haunting refrain. Rituals? Sacrifices? The flickering firelight cast ghostly shadows that danced around her family, showing glimpses of twisted expressions and sinister whispers. She looked to Tyler, who was breathing heavily beside her, his eyes wide with panic. They needed a plan. Fast. "Maybe we could," Jenna started. But her words faded as Hank's laughter cut through the spell of silence, alarming and cruel. "You think you can just leave? You're part of the story now," he sneered, and the words wrapped around her like barbed wire. The townsfolk's laughter joined his, a cacophony that rang hollow and hollowed something inside her. She felt her heart thumping wildly, desperate for freedom. But each beat seemed to echo in the dark corners of the school, bouncing back to remind her of their suffocating predicament. "Run!" Mike suddenly shouted, breaking the trance that held them captive. Without thinking, Jenna grabbed Tyler's hand. But the moment she turned, a figure emerged from behind the door, a wiry woman with eyes as dark as the void outside. She raised a finger to her lips, a warning that sent a freezing chill racing through Jenna. "Don't disturb the spirits," the woman whispered, her voice like dry leaves rustling in an autumn breeze. Jenna's breath caught. What spirits? What did they want? They hadn't just stumbled upon a forgotten town. They entered a place governed by rules of the macabre. With adrenaline surging, the family pushed past the woman and sprinted toward the exit, their feet pounding against the filthy tiles. Outside, the night air felt thick, making it hard to breathe as fear clawed at their backs. The locals weren't far behind. The sound of their voices melded into a haunting chant, each syllable pulling the Millers deeper into terror as they fled. "Where's the car?" Tyler shouted, glancing back. Panic swept through Jenna as they reached the desolate parking lot. Their only means of escape sat motionless, an eerie shadow against the flickering streetlight. What if it won T-start? Sarah's voice trembled, and for the first time, doubt crept into Jenna's heart. Would they be trapped here? Behind them, Hank was gaining ground, his grin widening. "You can't hide. This is where you belong now." That unholy cheer in his voice nearly shattered Jenna's resolve. "We have to go now," Mike urged, shoving the driver's door open. He turned the key. The engine gave a feeble sputter, but didn't roar to life. Panic engulfed them, their hopes dangling by a thread. "Come on, please," Jenna cried, fear twisting her stomach as Hank came closer. The group of townsfolk circled like wolves, trapping them further. They were closing in, eyes gleaming with a ghoulish hunger. Amidst the chaos, Jenna caught a glimpse of something glimmering inside the school, a symbol that matched one of the markings from the papers. It pulsed as if beckoning her, and a sudden urge to understand swept over her. What if that symbol held the key to their survival? The car continued to sputter, but time was running out. Would Jenna choose to face this dark enigma that could either bind them to this horror or lead them to freedom? With a decision solidifying in her gut, Jenna shouted, "I'm going back." The horror around them pulsed with energy, and every instinct within her screamed it was a mistake. But to confront the darkness or to embrace the unknown, she felt the weight of every terrified glance, every frantic beat of her heart. She dashed back toward the cursed school. The very air seemed to vibrate with anticipation. What would she uncover? Would she become the next victim of this nightmare? Or would she find the truth buried in its shadows? The answer loomed closer, shrouded in mystery just beyond her reach. The cool air whipped around Jenna's face as she sprinted toward the school. Each step felt like a surge of electricity coursing through her, propelling her into a dark unknown. Behind her, she could hear the chaotic shouts of her family, urging her to return. She stumbled, but the flickering light from the school beckoned her onward, a moth drawn to a flame. Once inside, the shift in atmosphere was palpable. The air felt heavy, saturated with the scent of mold and decay. Shadows lurked in corners, creeping along the walls where laughter had just moments ago rang out like a death knell. She skittered across the grimy floor, desperate for any sign of hope. The symbol she had seen was now pulsating by the entrance, darting through the dimness like a heartbeat. It was etched into the floor, surrounded by an intricate pattern that seemed to writhe and twist under her gaze. Jenna crouched, reaching out to touch it, her fingers trembling. As soon as her skin made contact, a violent jolt coursed overhead. Like the crack of lightning, images flooded her mind. Dark figures performing rituals, their faces obscured by veils of shadow. The townsfolk surrounding a bound figure, cries piercing the suffocating fog. Each image merged into a violent soundscape that echoed her thoughts and blinded her with the weight of truth. This town was not just abandoned. It was alive with stories, the spectral kind, and they were hungry. Jenna! Mike's voice sliced through her haze. Jenna! Get back! We'll find another way. He sounded panicked. The urgency wrapped itself around Jenna, squeezing her heart like a vice. She looked back toward the entrance. The darkness surged, and Hank's silhouette loomed larger, his grotesque laughter filling the air. Don't you want to know what they want with you? The crowd murmured, a restless tide of anticipation, their eyes glinting with malice. Jenna steadied her breath. She felt the heat of the symbol beneath her palm pulsing faster, and she knew she was teetering on the brink of something monumental. We are the story too. If we choose to face it, she whispered half to herself. There was no more time. Tightening her grip around Tyler's pendant, Jenna took a deep breath and shouted defiantly, If I'm part of your story, then I will write it with my own words. In an instant, the room filled with a blinding white light that enveloped her whole, stunning Jenna and throwing her off balance. Familiar whispers clawed at her consciousness, mingling with her resolve. Embrace it. Become the tale. Join us. As the light faded, Jenna's senses heightened. The shadows took on solid forms, faces, and limbs materializing as the town revealed its cursed legacy. To her shock, she recognized one pair of eyes among the swirling chaos. It was the dark-eyed woman, the ominous figure who had warned her earlier. Only now, she was grinning with a feral intensity. Everything you seek is within, but freedom comes at a price, the woman hissed, her voice spelling a wicked promise. The walls shifted, the air thickening as walls began to close in. The townsfolk stood uncanny and still, awaiting her next move. Panic surged, but determination followed. Gather the truth, and your family shall be spared. The woman continued, floating closer, her fingers trailing through air like smoke. Let the saga live through you. A crude escape plan formed in Jenna's mind. Yet the spiraling darkness around her tugged at her very essence. Was this truly the answer? Would unearthing the town's secrets sever the bind that held her family captive? She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the imminent cost settle on her shoulders, while outside, Mike, Tyler, and Sarah South's anxious voices drew close. Every glance filled with dread. Could she go back empty-handed, or would she find what the town craved, and reveal a deeper horror than she had ever imagined? The question loomed heavy, more oppressive than the shadows closing in, and as Jenna stilled her thundering heart, the pulse of the town mirrored her racing pulse. Was this just the beginning, or was she about to awaken far worse nightmares than Hank's twisted smile? The whispering shadows thickened around Jenna, their presence clinging to her like a wet shroud. Every breath felt suffocated, laden with the weight of the town's dark history. The woman's expression twisted with anticipation, eyes gleaming with hunger. You must choose, Jenna. Will you become the vessel of our tale, or suffer the fate of those who have come before you? Jenna's heart raced, a pounding protest against the instructions swimming through her mind. Escape seemed to flicker just out of reach like a mirage, while the townsfolk began to stir, a collective chorus of longing and desperation unfolding within the confines of the school's walls. She took a step back, instinct urging her to flee, but fear locked her feet in place. Please. Mike's voice tore through the heavy silence, slicing through the dread that hung like fog. Don't listen to them. We need to get out of here. But the shadows were alive and insistent, curling around Jenna's legs, tugging her forward. The dark-eyed woman glided through the crowd, her smile widening. You can't resist what you are destined to uncover. This isn't about the past, Jenna. It's about what you will unleash. The weight of the pendant in Jenna's hand felt like a promise and a curse. Would this curse grant her family safety or plunge them into a deeper abyss? Time stretched in excruciating silence as the room swelled with darkness. Gather the truth echoed around her, forming a relentless loop in Jenna's mind. The townspeople's eyes, once cold and distant, now gleamed with an insatiable hunger as if they craved more than just knowledge. They wanted her to submit to collapse into their twisted narrative. Jenna could see Mike, Tyler, and Sarah through the swarm, but she could also see Hank standing imposing, laughter bubbling beneath his facade. Join us, Jenna, or join the dust. Her throat tightened, choking on the facts that pressed at her consciousness. The sensation of being watched prickled at her skin, the air around her becoming charged with the promise of terror. She could feel the walls closing in, the weight heavily looming over her, demanding allegiance. Choose, the dark-eyed woman hissed, her face alight with an otherworldly glow. Your family or your fear? What will it be? The truth was spiraling within the chaos in her mind, each heartbeat synchronized with the pulsing symbol beneath her palm. It was raw power, beckoning her to embrace the nightmare. She could feel the echoes of secrets pressing in around her, potential stories ready to unravel like a tightly wound spool. Please, she whispered, feeling the stirring deeper inside her. What if I refuse? What if she refuses? The townsfolk chanted, their voices merging into a sinister song. What if? Then your family will pay the price. The woman laughed, a sound that echoed off the decaying walls, freezing Jenna's blood. Rage ignited inside her. The fear melted away into resolve, transforming into a stark clarity. I will gather the truth, she said, her voice firm but trembling. But it won't be what you expect. The dark-eyed woman tilted her head, intrigued. Then step into the shadows, child. The truth awaits, but be warned it does not come without its guardians. Jaws tightening with determination, Jenna pushed through the crushing weight of the swelling darkness around her. She sensed the shadows swirling, shifting as if aware of her intention. Would they pull her deeper into their embrace or would they tear her apart? With every step, the ground vibrated underfoot, the symbol pulsing like a heartbeat echoing her defiance. Suddenly, whispers filled her ears, a cacophony of lost souls pleading, demanding to be heard. Each voice a fragment a layer of the truth she sought to uncover. The dark-eyed woman paled slightly, yet her grin widened. Then let the tale unfold. But as Jenna teetered on the edge of the abyss, shadows clawing for her, she realized that the secrets she unearthed could unveil horrors beyond her comprehension. Would the truth she sought bring salvation or damnation? Would she be the savior or the harbinger of destruction? The question echoed in her mind as she took another step forward, straining against unseen forces. This was just the beginning. Darkness tightly coiled around her like a vice, and the truth was waiting impatient and hungry. What lay in the depths of the shadows? And would Jenna be brave enough to face the price it demanded? The shadows surged around Jenna, a living cloak woven from the very fear she felt. The whispers intensified, swirling like a tempest in her mind. Each fragment of despair collided within her, demanding acknowledgement. She stepped into the dark, heart pounding like a drum in a funeral march. Stay close, Mike shouted, but the words felt miles away. She could barely recognize him through the thick haze that enveloped them. Panic flared for a moment, but determination quickly snuffed it out. She had stepped forward, and there was no going back. The townsfolk's eyes burned with unnatural fervor, their hollow faces shifting like marionettes on frayed strings. They leaned closer, forming a wall of anticipation. The truth will consume you, they crooned in unison, their voices a harmonious requiem. Jenna pressed the cool pendant into her palm, needing its power to guide her through the darkness. As she crossed the threshold, the air thickened, pressing against her lungs. In that moment, she could almost taste the fear that lingered in the room, bitter and heavy like ash. With every step further into the thickening shadows, she felt the walls closing in, whispering secrets soaked in anguish. "Do you hear them?" The dark-eyed woman appeared, her voice a silken thread that bound Jenna in place. "They are waiting for their stories to be told." They weren't just stories. They were memories that clawed at the edges of reality. Could she sense the weight of regret and sorrow pressing against her? Jenna nodded, though her throat felt dry. "Then you must listen." The woman beckoned, motioning toward the encroaching darkness that pulsated like a living entity. The shadows responded, shivering with life. They twisted and turned, revealing glimpses of foggy figures standing at the edge of her vision, images of those who might have come before. As Jenna approached, the whispers intensified. "Remember." Remember images flooded her mind, hunters lurking in the woods, mournful cries echoing under the skeletal trees, families separated, lives lost in a myriad of struggles. Jenna stumbled back, her heart racing with the force of a startled animal. This wasn't just the town's history. It was a cursed legacy. "Face it, child," the dark-eyed woman cooed, her smile wide, barely masking the underlying hunger for Jenna's revelation. "This is not history. This is you." "I don't want to become a part of this," Jenna shouted, a surge of strength pouring into her voice as her own horror collided head-on with the net of despair weaving around her. A momentary silence fell, interrupted only by the faint echo of her heartbeat. The townsfolk flared around her, faces twisted with both fear and anticipation. "But you already are," Hank's taunting voice echoed from behind her, piercing through the suffocating air. The shadows darkened, gathering with a palpable intensity. Jenna felt her heart sink. She was standing on the precipice of a chasm, with threads of reality unraveling beneath her. "Gather the truth," the whispers insisted again. But Jenna could feel the sinister undertone behind them, the insistent urge to merge their tragic fates with hers. Then something shifted. A low growl thundered in the hall, like the sound of chains rattling from deep within the shadows. Panic crept in. The tales of those lost weren't finished. They were watching, waiting, fangs bared. "Let go," Mike screamed, reaching for her, other voices in the crowd crying out in hate-sown desperation. "Run. They want you." But where could she run to? Back toward a history she was bound to, or deeper into the shadows where the truth awaited? The darkness quivered, hungry for what she might reveal. Jenna was struck by a sudden realization. The stories wanted to be set free, but at what cost? She clutched the pendant, feelings intertwining fear, anger, curiosity. With horror twisting her heart, she stepped forward into the depths, every instinct screaming for her to turn back. Would the truth they craved forge her destiny or consume her? In that moment, Jenna understood. It wasn't merely about stepping into the shadows. It was about facing what shunned the light as an echo of herself. And just then the shadows erupted. Screams, laughter, chaos intertwined, threatening to drown out her resolve. "Welcome to the tale, Jenna," the dark-eyed woman whispered, her voice a chilling caress as they closed in. "You will know our pain, and it will be the end of you." As reality twisted obscurely, Jenna braced herself, knowing the truth would demand a sacrifice. Would she be brave enough to confront the phantoms of her soul? And beyond the veil, unseen eyes waited in the dark, longing for her answer. The world fell away as Jenna took that fateful step into the depths. The shadows tore at her, pulling her further into their cold embrace. She tried to scream, but the sound caught in her throat, choking her. The faces pressed closer, their expressions shifting in a grotesque mimicry of pleading and malice. "Tell us," they murmured, a wavering chorus of voices. "Tell us what you know. Share it with us." Jenna stumbled, almost losing her footing. Her eyes darted around, searching for Mike, desperate for a familiar face. But the crowd had melded into a suffocating mass, every feature blending into something unrecognizable. A knot of dread twisted deep within her stomach. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, her voice breaking. The dark-eyed woman floated closer, her smile deepening. "You have a gift, Jenna. You have the ability to unravel the threads of pain. Don't you feel it? The stories inside you crying to be told." A sudden flash ripped through her mind, a horrific tableau filled with shadows. A scene half-remembered yet wholly terrifying. She saw flickering faces tormented in memories, trapped in time. The realization ignited her own buried fears. She gasped, scrambling to maintain her grip on reality. "I want to be your voice. I want to." With her refusal, the air crackled. The shadows surged, anger boiling over, and Jenna felt cold fingers grasping at her, scraping against her skin like claws. They were the lost and the damned, groping for a means to rise from their eternal silence. "Too late," Hank's voice echoed back, sinister and delightfully cruel. "You already are one of us." A tale woven into a tapestry of horror. Blood thrummed painfully in her ears as the crowd's energy pulsed around her. The whispers returned, now sharper and more demanding. "Remember, remember," and suddenly, it was like a dam bursting. Memories didn't just flood her. They crashed violently over her like a tidal wave. She saw it, an immense forest shrouded in fog, the dusky outline of figures standing motionless, their eyes hollow mirrors of terror. Families lost among the trees. Horrific screams punctured the night. "Stop!" Jenna shouted, clutching her head as if it might explode. "I don't want to remember. Please, I can't." But the shadows only tightened. They squeezed until her breath came in ragged gasps. "You must remember," they hissed. "If not for yourself, for us." The air shimmered, then twisted, revealing images of violence and despair. She staggered back, the chilling realization that the darkness wasn't a mere backdrop, it was alive, thrumming with sorrow and desperation to be unleashed. The stories craved life, wanted to spill over into the world above. "Every lost tale adds to our might," the woman cooed, circling her like a predator scenting prey. "Join us, Jenna." As her heart thundered, a flood of doubt washed over her. Was she truly destined to be a harbinger of this darkness? What was at stake if she didn't comply? Could she truly silence the screaming ghosts? Suddenly, she felt the pendant pulsing against her palm, a warmth, strangely comforting amid the chaos. Hope flickered in her chest like a floundering flame. "No," she cried out, desperate to reclaim her strength. "I will not let you control me." And just as she shouted those words, a blinding light shot through the oppressive darkness. The whispers erupted into shrieks of fear. The dark-eyed woman recoiled, shadows retreating as if burned. Jenna could almost feel the tangible shift, a rift opening before her. But was it escape, or another trap? The shadows writhed and roared, their fury palpable. They turned on one another, seeking to take a piece of what she possessed. Jenna's feet moved instinctively toward the light, her heart pounding fiercely. But could she trust it? In a world woven with pain, who was the real enemy? As she lunged toward hope, the darkness howled, its anguish a chilling serenade. Was it the end or simply another chapter in her tale? And deep within that chaos, she felt unseen eyes watching, waiting to see if she would step forward or falter. Did she have the courage to confront the true history that would either set her free or swallow her whole? As the blinding light enveloped Jenna, she thought she could sense a brief chill flowing through her body, as if the shadows themselves were clinging to her skin, desperate to pull her back. Panic surged within her. What if this was all a trick? With each step towards the light, she felt the weight of thousands of eyes on her, yearning and furious. And then, without warning, the light flickered, revealing dark tendrils reaching out from the edges, grasping hungrily like monstrous hands. Jenna halted, heart racing, and the light flared again. "Don't look back." A voice screeched from somewhere within the shadows, a familiar voice. It was Mike. She squinted through the haze, searching for him. But all she found was the undulating mass of darkness, still alive with whispers. "Mike!" The word tore from her throat, a horrifying mix of relief and terror. "Where are you?" "Jenna! Move!" Please." His voice was strained, echoing against the cacophony of despair around her. The shadows recoiled, as if disturbed by the sound of his name. A violent rush twisted through the crowd, and Jenna could feel their collective anger rising like a storm. A surge of darkness clamored to consume her, each figure reaching out in desperate yearning. "Join us," they clamored, their voices a toxic symphony. "Share your gift." She squeezed her eyes shut, remembering the warmth of the pendant. She clutched it tighter, grounding herself. "I want to be part of your horror," she shouted, summoning every ounce of defiance she had. Suddenly, the ground beneath her shifted. There was an energy pulsing, and the edges of the shadows rippled ominously. Images seeped into her mind again, visions of families trapped, their fates sealed in sullen tragedy. It was a parade of suffering, a dreadful gallery she couldn't stand to witness any longer. "Stop!" she screamed, the panic constricting her throat. "Stop showing me. I can't bear it." The air thickened, and she sensed a build-up of tension, as if the shadows readjusted to her cries. They took in her terror, feasting on it, unyielding and relentless. Their whispers escalated into a frenzy, drowning out her thoughts with an overwhelming din. "You are haunted already. You must remember." The world blurred. She teetered on the edge of sanity. Just when she thought she would be swallowed whole, a terrible roar erupted at the heart of the shadows. The rift pulsed violently, birthright to a new horror. Figures twisted in agony, blurring together, their forms shifting in painful contortions. "Jenna!" A distinct shout broke through the chaos, laced with desperation. It was Mike finally in sight. She could see him now, pushing through the wretched crowd, fighting against their insistence. "Stay away from them," he yelled, but the growing tide of darkness reached out hungry for anyone foolish enough to cross its path. Jenna stepped back, fear clawing at her. But as she looked at Mike's determined face, everything shifted. Memories flooded back, not just from before, but beyond a deeper understanding that mirrored his sacrifice. She realized the darkness thrived on silence, on fear, and she had something it could never possess: her voice. "No!" she yelled, letting the realization fuel her anger. "You want to take us. You want to engulf our stories." The shadows hissed in response, splitting the darkness around her. Light flared again, bathing the area. She felt Mike's hand seize her wrist tightly. Warmth surged where their skin touched, igniting her with newfound strength. Together, they roared back at the shadows, uniting their voices. The guttering murmur of despair became palpable agony. Figures warped and twisted, retreating from the blossoming light. But, as the shadows recoiled, an even darker presence emerged, something far more ancient and sinister than anything they had faced so far. "I see you've chosen defiance." The voice was like gravel scraping against metal, chilling the very air. "But you can't escape your fate." Jenna's heart froze. What could this final force be? With heartbeats slipping away into the chaos, she knew the greatest terror was yet to come. Could they fight against the darkness after all? Or were they doomed to become another ghost in its wretched legacy? The darkness around Jenna seemed to pulse with an unsettling rhythm, the air thickening with its sinister grasp. Mike's hand squeezed hers tighter as they stood against the overwhelming tide. Shadows writhed and twisted, their monstrous forms longer and more grotesque, moving with a sentient hunger. "Stay close," Mike urged, his voice edged with determination but laced with an unmistakable tremor. The echo of the forces around them sent shockwaves through her bones. "Jenna, get ready. We need to break free." His eyes locked with hers, fierce and unyielding. But in that moment, the shadows swirled in a cacophony, whispering promises of doom and despair to each other. "You think you can escape?" The gravelly voice grew closer, like rusted chains scraping against stone. "You're part of us now. All of you." Jenna felt a cold sweat trickle down the back of her neck. Panic bubbled in her chest. Visions of lost souls, shimmering like wisps of nightmare, flickered in and out of existence. She glimpsed faces, those of children, mothers, fathers an unendurable parade of anguish encouraging her to join their ranks. "No!" Jenna cried, shaking her head violently as if she could dislodge the images. "You want to take us." The shadows responded, a roar of fury blasting through the frigid air. The ground beneath their feet trembled, fissures splitting open like the maw of a great beast. Dark energy coiled and writhed, taut like a tightening noose around her neck. "We are the echoes of the lost," they chanted as one, voices merging into a horrific song. "Embrace your fate, Jenna." A shimmering light flickered from the pendant, illuminating the grotesque faces, casting long, distorted shadows that danced on the walls of this hell. The light felt warm against the encroaching cold, a flicker of hope. Jenna looked at Mike, desperation igniting a flame within her. Together, she shouted, and without deliberation, they stepped toward the light. The tendrils writhed and twisted, pulling back as if burned by the radiance. But the darker voice persisted, louder now, drowning out the hum of panic. "You're not strong enough. You think love and hope can protect you," it laughed, a sound like nails on a chalkboard. "You're vulnerable." Each word felt like a dagger, but then a strange power surged through Jenna. She remembered what she had fought for, every moment of clarity, every beam of light that had pierced her darkest times. The faces of the lost morphed into her own memories, cheering her on. "We are not afraid," she bellowed, her voice rising above the shadows mocking. The world hummed, vibrating with energy as the darkness writhed in chaos. A fissure erupted in the void, light bursting forth like a sun, compelling shadows to recoil. Mike gripped her hand tighter, sheer concentration on his face. His body lightened beneath the weight of impending doom. But the darker presence wasn't done yet. With a wave of its hand, it summoned a wave of despair, a gust that tore through the air, carrying with it the scent of decay and abandonment. The shadows howled, swirling and wrapping around like smoke intended to choke. "Foolish children, you think you can sever the ties that bind you?" The voice was now a chilling echo, resonating deeper within the heart of darkness itself. Jenna felt herself beginning to waver, doubt clawing at the edges of her confidence. The pictures in her mind turned louder, more insistent. "Mike!" The cry escaped her lips before she could stop it. The shadows threw her voice back at her, a taunting ghost that echoed her panic. But Mike's face remained unwavering. "You're stronger than this," he yelled, his conviction spilling into her. "We have to fight." As the shadows lunged again, Jenna closed her eyes, channeling every ounce of strength, grieving the lost while embracing the living. The light surged once more, a blinding explosion of brilliance. "Release us," they shouted together, and for one fleeting moment, hope flickered brighter than fear. Yet just as part of her felt liberated, a bone-chilling realization sank in. They were not the only ones fighting back. Something more sinister loomed at the center of the chaos, a vortex of darkness pulsing, thrumming with an ominous energy that threatened to swallow them whole. And in that fleeting moment, Jenna caught a glimpse of what was truly behind the curtain. A sinister smile lurking just beyond the light, ready to reclaim its hold. "Welcome home," it hissed, a promise that chilled Jenna's heart to the core. How much longer could they resist the darkness? Time slipped through their fingers, the inevitable unfolding before them like a reluctant storm. Would they become part of the shadows, or tear through the void once and for all? The surge of light erupted around them, but it was not enough to extinguish the shadows closing in. Jenna felt the hair on her arms stand on end as the sinister laughter echoed around her, bouncing off the walls of the void. "Foolish children," the dark voice boomed, and all went black for a heartbeat. A suffocating blackness that snuffed out the light like a candle flame in a storm. "Welcome to your grave," Jenna gasped, struggling to breathe as fear seized her chest. It was an overwhelming weight, a crushing pressure that made her dizzy. But then a sliver of the pendant's light flickered, clinging to life despite the onslaught. "Stay together," Mike shouted, his grip unyielding. He pulled her closer, melding their uncertain breaths. "We can't let it divide us." But a cold wind howled through the void, splitting them apart. Shadows slanted like jagged teeth, reaching for Jenna's legs. She stumbled, heart racing as she barely dodged out of the grasp of a shadow that seemed to take a physical form, its claws gnashing, hungry for her. "Run!" Mike shouted, dashing forward, but the ground trembled, and they were thrown off balance. Jenna's foot slipped into a chasm that had opened, an abyss that twisted and writhed like hungry serpents. "Mike!" she screamed, the terror screeching in her chest as she dug her nails into earth, trying to hold on. But an unseen force yanked her backward, her feet losing grip. "No!" He lunged, the shadows nipping at his heels. He reached for her just as the darkness surged, wrapping around Jenna, pulling her closer to the abyss. "Hold on!" The darkness howled in response, an anguished shriek that was almost human. Shadows cascaded around her like a dark waterfall, and Jenna felt a grim attraction to them, a whisper enticing her to give in. "Join us!" "No!" she screamed, fighting against the tendrils binding her. She balled her fists, drawing on every shred of defiance she had left. "I won't let you take me." "Jenna, focus." Mike's voice cut through the cacophony, anchoring her to reality. "Remember who you are. Think of the light." The pendant in her hand pulsed, warm and steady, battling the icy grip of despair. Jenna closed her eyes and envisioned their memories. Mountains climbed, laughter shared, the small moments of love and light. With each heartbeat, she pushed against the shadows, refusing to let them into her heart. Together, she chanted fiercely, a mantra to drown out the whispers. The light flared brighter, illuminating the darkness, pushing the shadows back. The roiling forces shrieked and twisted, screeching as if in agony. An explosion of energy erupted around them, scattering the dark like dust. Jenna's spirit lifted. The blackness shoved against her, but she sensed a faltering in its hunger. "Don't stop, Jenna!" Mike's voice echoed fiercely, urging her on. Suddenly, the darkness reacted violently, and Jenna felt the ground quake beneath her. Tremors ran through the air, and screams echoed all around, voices joining together an outrageous cacophony of the lost and damned. The shadows rallied, colluding against their light. "Fight, with everything you have," Mike yelled, his face set in grim determination as Jenna fought to summon the power within. She felt a crack form deep inside the shadow realm, a pulsing vein of light appearing a fracture in the suffocating darkness. It was her chance. "Now!" she shouted as they lunged toward the crack, their bodies propelled by the urgency of survival. The darkness roared angrily, thrashing as if it were alive, desperate to keep them within its grip. But just as they reached the crack, its edges shimmered, a threshold between worlds, promising both hope and terror. The tendrils lashed out one last time, coiling around Mike's ankle, pulling him back, threatening to drag him under. "Mike!" she shrieked, hand outstretched, fighting against the shadows that resolved into a mass of eyes and grinning mouths. "Jenna, go!" His command was fierce, filled with desperation. "You have to go. I can hold it." "No!" she shouted, her heart breaking at the thought of losing him to the dark abyss. The struggle was frantic, and in that moment, Jenna realized she had a choice. How could she leave him behind, even if it meant surviving? But as the shadows pressed forward, she sensed the true evil lurking deeper within something ancient, a darkness that pulsed with pulsing malevolence. With a final, agonizing tug, the shadows pulled Mike away from her grasp. His face twisted in despair even as he fought against them. "Jenna!" he shouted as he vanished into the depths, the darkness shuddering with his absence. The light dimmed, the crack now narrowing, and in that moment, Jenna knew she had to decide. To stay and fight for him or to escape and risk leaving him forever. What choice would she make? In that dying flicker of illumination, she felt the dark whispering once more, promising retribution and despair. "Come join us." Forever the voices grew louder, a siren song that enticed her toward the shadows. Would she succumb to the depths, or could she forge a path back to him? The darkness was closing in, and time was running out. Jenna stood trembling at the edge of the crack, the swirling shadows that had almost entangled her like a web of despair curling just behind. The weight of Mike's scream, filled with both terror and resolve, echoed in her mind. "Jenna, go!" The scream cut through her heart like a knife. She glanced back where Mike had been snatched into the darkness. The shadows roiled and twisted, shadows of who he had fought against, fingers clawing for anything, any hint of his presence. She felt a pull toward that darkness as if it were calling her name, sweetened with promises she could hardly comprehend. But then she felt it, the warmth of the pendant. It pulsed in her hand, a steady rhythm, like the heartbeat of hope. Jenna clenched it tightly, drawing strength from the memories it carried, the laughter, the adventure, the last moments shared as a family before this nightmare started. Fight, Jenna. Don't let it win. She remembered her family's relentless love, their final bond. She took a deep, shuddering breath, fueled by a surge of defiance. With every ounce of strength, she shouted, "I won't be part of your horror." Her voice rang out solid and unwavering against the oppressive blackness striving to swallow her whole. The crack danced with blinding light, pushing back against the ice-cold shadows that wanted to consume her. "Let him go!" Jenna cried out again, summoning her determination, her heartbeat matching the pounding of the light-filled crack. "You can't take us!" The shadows screamed in indignation, leaning toward her, lunging as if to tear her apart with their fury. But the light flared, widening its embrace, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. "You think you can escape?" The darkness screeched, its voice a rasp filled with venomous confidence. But Jenna could feel strength stealing within her. "No more fear. Not now. I won't let you have him." With that, she stepped forward, jumping into the crack, the air shimmering vibrantly alive around her. Each heartbeat was a declaration of her independence, a refusal to succumb to this despair. She felt the shadows recoil, twisting angrily, losing their cohesion as the light expanded around her, cradling her within its faithful arms. She plunged deeper into the crack, reality swirling like liquid glass. Jenna felt herself being hurled forward, each second stretching like gum in her mind. The last grasp of the darkness brushed against her shoulder, a fleeting caress, and then nothing, then clarity. Jenna landed firmly on the grassy ground, the early morning sun spilling golden light across the landscape. She turned slowly in a panic, scanning the area. Where was Mike? "Mike!" She called into the ether, her voice echoing in the stillness. Every moment stretched as she felt breathless within her chest, longing, fear clawing at her throat. Shadows from the previous night nipped at her consciousness, but she pushed them aside. She couldn't let them take hold. Not now. "Jenna!" She turned at the sound of the familiar and beloved call. A figure burst from the thicket. Mike. His face was a mixture of confusion and exhilaration, yet unharmed. Relief flooded over her like a warm wave. "Mike!" She shouted again, and this time, they collided in an embrace filled with warmth and tears. No darkness could touch them now. The light from the crack had freed them. Trust blossomed in their hearts, and Jenna breathed in the sweet air without fear. All around, the village remained silent, but she could sense the fading echoes of the town's hunger. Those shadows, however, could no longer snatch her away. She and Mike stood together, stronger than before, refusing to delve into the grasp of despair. Together, they walked back along the unpaved road, hand in hand, the sun rising boldly in the east, illuminating the path ahead. As they turned one last time to face the silhouette of the town behind them, they knew they had a story, together, and they were determined to tell it. They would carry the light forward, transforming each tale into a beacon of hope, opening dialogues for those still trapped in darkness. As the last rays of sunlight sparkled on the horizon, Jenna smiled at Mike. "Let us tell everyone about the shadows we faced." "Yeah," he nodded, "and how we fought back." With triumph echoing deep in their hearts, they drove away, leaving the remnants of fear and shadow behind, full of promise, as all road trips should be. Now it's your turn to make sure the light shines brighter. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now and feed the algorithm. Do your part and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this conclusion. Be a true fan and support the channel. Your love keeps the stories alive.